All right. Well, happy Monday, COP family, and welcome to your message recap. My name is Larisha Johnson, and I am so excited to have with us our very own Elder Cindy Kane. How you doing, lady?
I am well. Good to see you both. Hello, COP family.
And we are also welcoming back with us our very own Pastor Aaron Harris. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. It's good to be with you both, and I'm looking forward to our discussion.
It's always a good one. I'm really excited to jump in this and talk this through. But before we do that, as a reminder, I always want to let folks know that they can download the sermon notes on our COP mobile app and on our website. You can replay the messages through the week. We've been encouraging you all to not just replay Sunday, but go back and revisit the whole series. You can pretty much everything we've done since the beginning of the year, but definitely this particular series, go back and listen to the messages and take notes again and keep discussing that in your Omni groups. I think it'll be a blessing to you, and you'll pick up things that you didn't pick up before. So definitely continue to do that. And I think that's it as far as notes go and housekeeping. So I think we'll go ahead and jump into discussion for this week. So we're talking through the skepticism of giving. So this is part 6 of our teaching series, Graceful Giving for Successful Living. And before we began filming, I was letting Pastor Harris know that I appreciate just even the idea of calling out that there is skepticism for a lot of people when it comes to giving. I felt that it acknowledged just kind of like the elephant in the room that a lot of people don't want to talk about, and it's a thing and it's real and people have it for a reason. But it doesn't have to be the reason that we stop giving or stop doing what we know God called us to do. So, Pastor Harris, I just want to just give you a shout out and say thank you for even acknowledging that because people don't even really talk about it. They like you should give, and yeah, all that stuff has happened, but we just gonna brush over that and just here's why you should give. So, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, and get my notes here, is there was a part in the message in person, and it was on our online celebration as well. But you talked about some details between discernment versus skepticism, and now that really stuck with me. And if we could start there, because I think you brought that out more so in the in-person celebrations, if we could talk about just kind of those differences. Like, what's the difference between discernment and skepticism?
Yeah, so skepticism usually is birthed out of fear, out of doubt, and out of opinion. And so a lot of times, if someone is a skeptic, then usually they question everything without necessarily trying to come to a concrete solution based off of facts, but they're just questioning things for the sake of questioning them. And so in this sermon, I spoke about the difference between skepticism, which is based out of fear, doubt, and opinion, and then discernment, where the Bible talks about over and over that we're supposed to have discernment. And actuality, discernment is one of the spiritual gifts that we can have. But discernment comes from knowledge, wisdom, and the Holy Spirit. And so we as children of God are not called to be skeptical, but we're called to be discerning. Now, how it applies to this particular topic is when it comes to giving, yes, we have to use discernment for where we sow our seed or where we place our finances, but we're not supposed to be skeptical in the sense of we're allowing fear, doubt, and opinion to lead our financial offering. And so when we're doing things out of skepticism, then we're doing things out of fear and our own opinion instead of using discernment, instead of using facts, truth, wisdom, and God's spirit to lead us and direct us into what we should do and how we should do it.
Mm, that's so powerful to me because I think that really gets at the argument that's made a lot as far as even just people who are believers in general. Like the argument you hear is like, oh, it's blind faith, and you're not you don't use your brain, and you're not discerning or thinking, and like skepticism being like the I guess the tool, I guess, to to be like to be a thinker, you have to be skeptical. And I appreciate that you're saying no, you can still think and you can still use wisdom and not just do whatever. but still have faith, right? And here's how you do that. I think that's so important. Anything
It
else?
is.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, and so timely. Over the weekend, maybe on Friday, I had a conversation with folks about what was deemed healthy skepticism, which I'm not sure. Well, whatever. I'm not sure how I feel about that, quite frankly. And we were talking about stuff going on in the world, right? And I appreciate you giving kind of the biblical language, because what I shared in this conversation is that skepticism, at some point, you got to land it, right? And folks will just be skeptical. And the problem is skepticism is like the cousin to cynicism, right? Where you'll say no to everything because you're supposed to question, and so I think it's so easy to get, and so, at some point, you have to do something with your questioning and your curiosity, right? You have to do something with it. But if you never, land that plane, I'm not sure what good skepticism serves, right? And so I appreciate recognizing that what's really healthy is discernment.
Yes.
And, hearing from God, right? Getting information, getting answers, realizing that one experience, as was highlighted in the message, that doesn't mean that's all churches, right? Or all opportunities to give or whatever. And so this is super timely for me because I literally just had this conversation with folks and probably wasn't as graceful or as articulate as our teacher was this weekend. So thank you for that, Pastor Harris. But yeah, I think it's important to understand that it has to lead somewhere. Otherwise, you're just being a cynic.
I love that point about you got to land the plane somewhere. Like, where are you going to land with this? Right? So very good. I'm going to have to go back on that. Go ahead.
And then looking at that, that's what I used as to talk about financial stewardship. If we're using skepticism, then usually it's out of a fear of, I don't necessarily want to do what God is calling me to do. So instead of me acknowledging that I have a lack of faith to steward my finances in a way that God wants me to, instead I will start pointing a finger and blaming others. Therefore, it takes the responsibility off of me. So.
And I love that because it's like, even in acknowledging that you may be struggling with faith in that area or any area, but even in giving, like we can acknowledge, oh, I'm struggling with faith in this, in this area, but it's just something about every other area, but it's something about giving. But just to even acknowledge that and know that, okay, I can acknowledge that I'm struggling there and expect God to meet me there and to help me there and to guide me, where he wants me to be. So that's good stuff. All that from a definition from discernment and skepticism. I was like, oh my, okay, I see where we're going. So good. And I think that sets us up really good for the next thing I wanted to talk about. Was what I appreciated. I appreciate so many things about this message, but I appreciate, Pastor, how you just called out and really kind of laid bare and just opened up and was real transparent about what we do with our finances here at Center of Praise. Because again, in some settings, people, they give and they don't know where their money goes, and it's not very apparent, like what's happening with my resources. So I appreciate that you laid it out. Like, here's what we're doing locally, with our neighbors, and here's what we're doing in our broader community, and here's where your money's going globally. And I think about this term that I've heard bishops say quite frequently and a lot over this weekend actually was better together. That's so when I'm thinking about all this giving that we're doing, it's better when we do it together. So, and we'll start with Elder Cindy, but I wanted to hear from the two of you when you hear the term better together, what kind of rings in your heart?
Okay. I think it's, I'm sorry. That's a great, I think it's important to realize that at the crux of that, it recognizes that all of us have gifts, and it's not just for ourselves, right? I think as anything, God allows for us to be stewards over in terms of our talents, right? And our gifts and knowledge and all of that. I can have all of that, and that's wonderful, but like I can just, by mere numbers, I can do more when I connect what I have with what Pastor Harris has. and then we connect what we have, right, with Larisha, and then go on. And so ultimately, now that takes faith in that, right? Because I have to be willing to be vulnerable. I have to be willing to like listen to other ideas. I probably have to humble my, there's other things that we have to do that you're not called to do when it's just you by yourself. So I don't think that people should be confused that it isn't necessarily always easier together, right? Because there's times you're dealing with personalities and all kinds of stuff. But I do think ultimately we're better, right? Because I have the opportunity, we get to pool our resources in essence. And I think that, for the sake of kind of this discussion and the message, right, pooling our resources in the local church allows for us to make a greater impact in Sacramento, right, throughout the state, throughout the world. Obviously, all of us could donate or give, right? I could pass by one of the neighbors by the church and give them money. I could do that, right? But just by mere numbers, I'm able to make a greater impact when the three of us or whoever, we all get together, right? And then we're able to like make that large impact to them, and hopefully, right, you want it to keep going. So then the response to that hopefully is gratitude, right, and being gracious, but also being prompted, wow, if me and my family then connect with the other two neighbors or whatever, I mean, it really is a ripple effect. So I think that's important, and that was a good reminder. I know for me, it's realizing, because again, it's very easy, we have the convenience to do it. I can find a charity and contribute without getting out of bed, right? But I'm able to make a bigger impact when I am connecting with a trusted ministry where I know where it's going. And so again, that's why I appreciate Center of Praise, and I appreciate that being like shared, because again, I would imagine that a lot of folks have come from experiences where we weren't told, right? And so I know I just gave to a building fund and we've not built anything ever, right? But we're, what I'm saying? So I think that's, when you speak of kind of that elephant in the room, I think it's a good opportunity to kind of, call out all of those negative things that we may have experienced.
Mm-hmm. Great point. Pastor Harris, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and for me, one thing that I like about Center of Praise, with it being a larger congregation, you're able to do a lot more together. Now, when you're in a small congregation, 20, 30 people, then really you're trying to take care of yourself and maybe do a little bit in the neighborhood. But once you start getting to the thousands of members and everyone bringing their resources together, then it's like, okay, well, not only can we serve our neighborhood, but we can serve different neighborhoods throughout the county. And not only can we serve neighborhoods throughout the county, we can help different churches throughout the world. And in my text, I spoke about the church in Jerusalem and then the church in Corinth, and how the church in Corinth was the church with the resources, and they had it to give to the church in Jerusalem. And I think about how I would much rather be the church that's able to give than the church that's dependent on the resources from others. Not saying that that's a negative thing, because everyone is placed strategically in different positions, but just saying that it's a privilege to be able to go to a church that's not only having a neighborhood impact or even a city impact, but the church that's having a global impact, and where we're serving and we're giving finances to missionaries, and we're thinking globally about the gospel and not just locally. That feels a part of the mission when Jesus talks about make disciples of all nations, not make the disciples next door. That's nice and that's good if that's all you have the resources to do. But when you get hundreds hundreds of people or thousands of people putting all their resources together, then you're really able to have that global impact, as opposed to if you're trying to do it by yourself, you can't even have neighborhood impact. You can have like one person impact. And I used to be that way with the church. I used to think, oh, I don't understand what the church, and I don't know what they're doing with the finances and things like that. I'm just going to take what I have, and when I see somebody that needs something, I'm going to give it to them. And it felt good to me because I got that immediate satisfaction of, oh, I helped this person and I saw it and I got the immediate thank you. And when you give to the church, then oftentimes you may not get that immediate thank you so much. I appreciate that. I needed it. But when you give to the church, then you're able to have just, when you give to Center of Praise, you're able to have just that global impact. So that's where I think it's better together. We can do more together. Like Elder Cindy said, we could do much more together than we can do as individuals.
That is so good. I think that Elder Cindy had brought out a point too, as far as how it humbles you, when you're doing stuff, when you're a part of something bigger than yourselves. And to your point, Pastor Harris, it's not that you don't always get that immediate thank you or that immediate, where you feel good about what you did, but then it goes back to kind of what's your motive? Why are you doing this? What's the reason behind it? Are you doing it for the immediate thank yous and the likes? Okay, that's pretty much all you're going to get. So it just, I think, helps us just think beyond doing something because it feels good to us, but like there's a bigger, as we all know, we all watch the news, there's so many needs out there. Why would we not pool our resources together, our financial resources, and do this together? So I think that is spot on, spot on, spot on. And I think that takes us very well to one of the last things I wanted to talk through, and that was, Pastor Harris. You brought out towards the close of the teaching, Second Corinthians 8:24, and basically to summarize, it says that we are to show proof of our love through our giving. And what that made me think about is just in general, just where we are, not just as a nation anymore, but as a world, like if at any other time, if no other time that we need folks to continue to show love and to show proof of their love and to keep showing up, it's now. So what I would like to do is to hear from the both of you, just some encouragement for the folks this week on, ways that they can keep showing up and keep committed to where they're giving, keep committed to giving locally at Center Praise and whatever else they're involved in, but just to keep showing up in that area. And we'll start with you, Elder Cindy.
I think that is, you're right, Larisha. I think with what's going on in the world, there's tons of stuff. And I think that if we're not careful, we can get to a place of feeling, well, what's the point, right? Things are so big. I can't do anything for a earthquake. I can't do anything because of a war, all these things. And so then the tendency is just then to fall back and, my gifts don't matter anyways because the need is so great. And so I was just encouraged, and, I think hearing you say that kind of encouraged myself first, but that I would encourage all of us is that, continue to give. I think it's to Pastor Harris's point made earlier, right? If we're looking for that immediate gratification, this may not be the season for that, right? This might be the time where it's going to be, it may not feel or seem or look like our gifts of love are making any impact, but they have to make an impact, right? They just have to, because of course they're right. And so it is that humbling of, it's one thing to donate to, the canned food drive and see the person come pick up the cans, right? Then I'm like, okay, cool. I feel like I did something there. And that's obviously, wonderful. But I think given, again, what we see going on globally, we may never, it's unlikely, frankly, that, right, we're going to be able to hear about the baby that got medicine, or the woman who was able to continue going to school, whatever it is, but that doesn't make our gifts any less impactful, and I would contend, probably even more impactful right now, right? It's um, and given how great the need is, it, to your last point, right? This is more reason why we need to do this together, right? Because it's literally bigger than any one person,
Yes.
any 10 people. It's so, it's so big.
Yes. I love that point. Love that. Pastor Harris.
Yeah, and looking at that text is challenging for me when it says, I believe that's verse 24, where it says like, show proof of your love through giving. And it's like, really? Like, show proof of your love? Like, what do you mean show proof? Like, this is challenging me. Like, do you not know that,
Prove it.
that we have love for God? It's in my heart. What do you
Yeah.
mean show some proof? But then I started thinking about like me and my wife, and I started thinking about what if I never spent the penny on her and I never got her anything or never paid for anything, and she knew that I was just stingy with my money and that's how I was. And it's like, I'm not paying for a dinner, we're not going to movies, we're not going on a date, we're not doing nothing, I'm not paying for nothing. And then it's kind of like every day I'm like, I love you, I love you, I love you. And she's like, yeah, I understand that emotionally you feel a connection to me, but I don't want you to be so tied up in your finances that you're putting your finances even above me, or that you value your finances even above me. And so with my wife, when I'm able to say, hey, let's go to the movies, and we go to the movies and we pack up and I'm able to spend, what I'm doing tangibly is showing that you're more important to me than my materials or my finances. When I buy her a gift and I say, okay, here's this gift that I bought you, then what I'm showing her is that you're more valuable to me than the finances that I have. And I think in a similar way, when the proof of your love is talking about in this text, it's just saying, hey, this is a tangible way for us to express our love to God's people and to God Himself. And so looking at it, I think it's a very practical text that was challenging to me, because it's like, what do you mean prove your love? But in doing it, then I got it and I was able to understand it better, looking at it and reading it over. And I believe that God really is like, no, I just want you to trust me and show me that you trust me even through your actions. I want you to have faith. I want you to show me your faith even in your actions, right? Sometimes people could say, oh God, I trust you in my heart, but not necessarily like in my life. And God is like, no, if it's in your heart, then it's gonna come out in your life. So that's what I see when I see the text of kind of proof of your love. And what I would encourage people to do that's struggling in the area of giving is understand that God is the creator of the entire universe. Like everything that's here, He's the one who created it. And if He's the creator of the universe, the sustainer of all things, then what happens is just about our trust in Him, our hope in Him, our faith in Him. When it comes to our life, do we trust God with our life that He can do more with it that we can? When it comes to our finances, do we trust God with our finances? And then that's kind of where that proof comes out for me. It's just saying, trust God. And as you trust Him, He'll show up, He'll show out, He'll do a lot more than we can. So that's what I get out of the text. And that's my encouragement for others, is just to trust in God.
I love that, and it's so simple, and it's the thread of this whole series. Yes, we're talking about finances, and it's important, but without trusting God, what are we doing? If we're not trusting Him with our finances, with our life, with our family, with our day, right? So I love that you tie that back just through the whole thread. Like and back to Elder Sydney's favorite word, God is so kind. His kindness, He's so kind, and He can be trusted. So I just appreciate this tying that back into trust, because for me, I don't know about for y'all, but it's been a week. It was a week, so I appreciate being able just to be reminded to kind of settle down into that. Like it's a lot going on, and it's probably going to continue to be a lot going on. But what doesn't change is God, and that we can trust Him, and that we can continue to be faithful in what He's entrusted to us. So I appreciate the both of you and your time. Well, whatever time you'll see this, I really appreciate it. And I think that's all we got for now, y'all. That this is so good and so rich for me. So until we meet next time, bye.
All right. Thank you both. It was great speaking to you and great being with you.
Yes, yes, family. Have a good one.
All right.